Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus3 Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording here Friday, the 15th of November, about 30 minutes after the close. On today's show, the market has spoken, the die is cast, and we're going to tell you why. My name's Ben Maldonado, and as always, I'm here with my partner, Barry Hederachi. Barry, how we doing?
Doing great, doing great.
So did you hear the message from the market this week, Barry?
Well, we sold the message, Ben.
Good, very good point. So
Right?
it was a good week.
It was a good week. I mean, we also sold it on the podcast last, midweek because we
Yeah.
talked about how these things were coming into place. Anyway, yeah, it was a good week. So, and you're going to cover a lot of commodities in the news also, right?
Yeah, we're going to cover corn, soybeans, sugar, coffee, and then I've got a monthly gold chart to augment your review of the monthly. But what we're staring at there is the SPX, and it looks like an island reversal.
All this island over here.
Yeah,
Yep.
Gilligan's Island is
hmm
they've been abandoned.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So let's take a look at what happened and what we think is going to happen. All right. So as usual, we're starting with the cash SPX chart. I hope, well, if you're new, I hope you guys get a chance to go back and catch up on the last couple of episodes because then, we talked about the build up and where it's going and all the levels, and it's a lot easier to keep up. If you caught the midweek show, I think you're a lot better off because we talked about the indices and what's happening at the high here. We spent a lot of time talking about that. So today we'll just we'll just continue from that point.
Yep.
And the big focus for the last week or so was after the election, the big focus was how far is it going to go? And last week with the cash chart, we gave out this 60-20 level for the S&P SPX, and we also talked about how we have a square that's setting up there, which is to me is incredible, right? The counts coming from all the way from October of 22, lining
Right.
up to this high and how it sort of actually responded in a way. So we talked about that. That's the cash. Then we also talked about the S&P. This is the futures chart. This
That's December, right?
front month. Yep, December. And we also happen to have a square there, but this is not from that far ago. This is just from August.
Right.
And it just happens to be 72 days by 108 degrees over here. So that was a square. So these things, when they were lining up, and we also have a square from the October, this is the same low, but this is coming from the S&P future. So they're all kind of lined up at the high. We saw all these, we had 60-26 up here. And our comments were basically, look, with this many cycles coming together, this many squares coming together, there should be some kind of a
Reaction.
reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, on top of that, on the 12th, we had the Rebel Yell cycle that we talk about that normally kicks off these things come into place. And that was right there in the middle.
Yep.
Was it? Yep. Yeah. So all of these things happened. We also had some counts squares happening on the weekly chart, which we've been talking about. So all of these things kind of came together, and it wasn't a big surprise, especially we were watching the 30-minute charts to really see, exactly when it's going to turn and the levels at that level at the lower time frames to watch. And it all kind of came together this week. So let me take just a few minutes and tie it all together. How about that? It's a good way.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, this is one of those instances where the weight of the evidence just kept stacking up.
Yes, going up into that and in that area, and you can see how price stalled out. So I guess there isn't a whole lot to talk about the highs because we've already done that for the last couple of 3 shows, maybe. So let's go on to see what to expect now. So, one of our favorite trades is sort of the first pullback after a high comes in. So we were, lower high in this case. So we had the first down leg. Sure enough, it stalled out exactly at, really good structural support. We had this level marked out for obvious reasons, 58.48, and sure, price got there. And we held it for now. What's up for next week, really, in summary, is we want to see how the counter trend would set up. That's really the theme. And what we're going to talk about now is, the possibilities and how that might set up.
Right. And for those of you new, it's we're trying to look for the setup for the fat pitch that we call it, because that this is the potential fat pitch coming up.
And if there's no fat pitch, I have to say, then this is just a nice structural pullback, and we're going to
And then
go.
we go again. That's
Right?
exactly right. And that's
That's
possible. That
that's
is
and
possible.
well, it happened here.
Hmm.
That's one place where it didn't give it to us, but we did get the lower highs here. That worked out just fine.
Yep.
Anyway, so S&P, the cash chart, not much. Really, the key level to watch next week is 58.48, because if we go lower, well, this first leg is not done, which just means the third's going to be even
Bigger. Hmm.
And so we'll see how that works out. But for now, 58.48 is the level to watch. And if we somehow slip, we have about 100-point gap there. I have nothing in between on the daily chart. And then 56.73. And they're really pretty far apart. These aren't really close together. So I would expect some, fast movement if we slip through 58.48. So that's what I have to say. On the other side, we have to appreciate the squares, and I think it was great how it came in. We all had plenty of forewarning before all of this came down, and that showed up, of course, on the futures chart. And I'm not going to take a lot of time because we talked about these squares last 2 or 3 shows. And here, 72, 108 by 72, squared out, fair enough. And if you guys go back and look at our tapes, 58.92 was really the only level we had in between the half square and the full 72 square, and which happens to be, the quarter of the square level. And we stopped there for now. Also on the 2x1. So it's still in a very strong position, just to say these are all 2x1s. The 1x1 is a lower line that's going through. We're still well above the 1x1, just so we know. I also, on the basis of the daily, I also don't have any numbers below 58.92 till we get to about 27.29. We can call 29. And we can say 72-degree line is at 57.29. And the 72-degree line is at 57.50. So we have a lot of movement, right? Possibility for movement, because we don't have a whole lot in between. Now, if you ignore the square and look at the structure, we do have structural support here. That's right about 58.22, 58.20. So that's another level to watch, which happens to be a quarter of a square, 1/8 of a full square. So we're keeping that in mind, and also 57.50. But the real big support is down here between 57.30 and 57.50. Okay, is that good enough? All right.
Very good.
All right. So let's take a look at the Dow. Dow futures, we talked about this zone a while back, and I've had it there for a while up on the board. 44,300 was really like a big target area.
So it was the kill zone, it looks like.
That really was a kill zone, and the upper boundary of that was 50% of the square, which happens to be 44,888. Anyway, we went about midway, installed, and turned, and some of the time counts and squares that we're seeing on the S&P and the cash and futures, and the NASDAQ. I mean, they all, most indices kind of move together, highs and lows come together. So they're also here in the Dow chart. So we know that. All right. So now the Dow, the next support level, I would say, and it's something we can count on, would be around 42,596. And that's quite a drop, right? It's not a few ticks. So, no. But what's funny is, it's funny how when the Dow moved that day, how it went from exactly the square, right up to the quarter square, right? That was the entire move was a quarter of that square. And now coming down, if we take that quarter square out and we can't really get above that, there's nothing in between. So this 42,540 area, let's say 42,500 for ease of remembering, that's really the big level for the Dow. Okay. All right. Those are the sort of the support levels we're looking at. The market obviously could stop anywhere in here. That support could come after a pullback. Obviously, we could have 1 or 2 day counter trend and come down and get to these support levels. we're looking at the market as if this high came in. I mean, of course it came in, but we're trying to see if it came in a larger time frame, only because we've been on this path for so long. If you can see how, when we go to the weekly chart, you'll see how long we've been trekking this. And because of that, we can call this, yeah, we have a high in place, but is it a meaningful high? Are we going to have a bigger follow through after that? So that's the part we have to kind of figure out in the next week or so. If there's, and the point being, I mean, this is not a little point. If we do get a lower high, it's not going to be a little, 100-point correction. It could be a much larger. That's the thing we have to really watch. If we actually get it lower high and we start to move down, I mean, we always look at these like 1, 2, and the third. If we get a 3 in here, that 3 could be, pretty decent size, and going towards the end of the month. And so we have to watch for that. That's what we have to do, right? That's what we do. Anything you want to add to the daily charts before I jump into the weeklies? And
Yeah, I'm going to cover the NQs, but I think this is good because, like you said, we spent a lot of time on the top. Now it's like, say, okay, where are the areas of support? Because if those get broken, things are going to unravel even more.
Right. So we always have to remember why we are concerned about that, and it's because of this high that came in, right? So we had that part cleared up. All right, let's go to. All right, let's cover this chart too. We looked at this midweek, I think, or it was maybe last Friday. And the thing here was, of all the other, with all the other things combined, we also had a Gartley sitting in the middle of all of that. And here's the ABCD, and it ended right in the smack in the middle. And this is sort of the sort of high probability box, if you want to call it that. And idea is you want the CD leg the D to end in the box somewhere, and the closer to the ABCD, the better, right? If the legs are equal. So yeah, I think this is close enough. We had the 72 from the July low. What I forgot to mention, or August 5th low, what I didn't mention so I don't have to cover the charts with lots of squares. Coming off the April low, we're up 120 degrees, right? By 150. So that's kind of a soft square, but we did get up to 120, and that's connected to the 90. So that sets up price-wise. And timing was there. So that high, this is the reason, the high looks pretty good. Now we have to kind of deal with, calling out high is one thing, but then trading all of that is another thing. And so now we have to look at how the whole thing is going to unfold. So that's sort of the part that we're going to work on. All right, here's another, so that was a daily chart that we just looked at. This is
yeah, if you get, what I was going to say, if you get the daily, put the daily back up. If we get a bounce back up and it just can make it to the circle, boy, that would be nice.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
Get stopped at the circle and reverses, then we've got the vibration to really spin it down.
Yeah, that would be ideal. And if you guys do any kind of Gann work, this is where you can use your Gann angles and all of these things to see where the counter trend stops. I mean, the whole trick is really not even nailing the high or low. It's really catching the counter trend, because that's the lowest risk place to enter a trade. And if it can come up to this circle, it'd be great. Let's see. Now, another reason for our concern about, this could end up becoming actually a decent high, meaning, having a deeper correction than we've had so far, is because of this 108-week cycle that we went up into, and the parabolic move that was tied to that, and all the price points, and this geometric line. We were basically, for all purposes, we basically got there. 59.50 was a area that, it would be nice to get there. We got there. Yeah, got a little above. That's okay. These are weekly charts, and a little bit of leeway is okay. The point is, it's okay to take it out a little bit. But if we stall there and start to go in the other way, then the numbers are working. And the other thing you brought up last week was, now we're outside the circle. So now what? All this time, okay, we're accelerating, we're in the parabolic, and all of a sudden now we're outside of it. Well, usually you go down. I mean, somebody asked a question on the channel, like what happens after a parabolic move? Well, you usually get a decent correction.
And
And
this week was kind of corroborating that theory.
so far, yes,
Hmm.
exactly. This is a textbook. So far, everything about this, the move and the squares and the time counts have been textbook so far.
Hmm.
But you know how market stuff is, everything depends on the next bar. So we'll see what happens. But
Yep, that's correct.
for now, everything's okay. So our thesis is sort of panning out the way we expected. So it's because of this parabolic mostly, and this 108, this 144 by 108. It's this thing that makes me think we have to be a little bit more concerned about this than instead of just being drunk on the keg that you just tapped last week.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? We want to just sort of be awake on all this. All right, might as well jump into the 30-minute really quick now that we're here. All right, Monday. Rebel Yell cycle hit on Tuesday, right? Is that right? On the
The
12th.
12th. Yep.
You can see the same pattern we saw last time when the Rebel Yell hit. We were looking for change in character. We talked about that a lot. And what happened after the 11? Sure enough, we got a high. As soon as the 12th turned around, all the highs were lower highs. Look at that.
Hmm.
This is the high, the actual high, lower high, lower high, lower high.
Yep.
And when that starts to, start getting that pattern, and the what's holding is a key level that you have, in this case 59.92. Well, you definitely want to watch this because
Right. When it
that's
breaks, you get the fast move. Yep.
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, if it breaks and we slip through, and what we always talk about is, what happens here? Are we gonna, can it hold above or not? Is it gonna get stuck below? So I think this is a really good example for you guys when we talk about getting stuck below level. This is classic. I remember the battle here. We were just going back
Hmm.
and forth, trying to get above, really couldn't, and then we slipped through, right? And I thought it might hold up in the zone, but it couldn't even do that. We broke below the zone, and here is the little measly sort of the counter trend overnight or after hours, and it just started to slip. Next level was 59.48. Well, 59.50, if you want to call it that. Really couldn't do it. Slipped through that. And then we had today, all of today's price action went down into 59.02, which was 50% of the square. And then this morning I had posted about this 58.69 level being super strong support that, if we actually get a decent sell off, that ought to hold. And didn't quite get there, but it definitely held, right above the zone there. All
Hmm.
right. Maybe for this run, maybe we'll go and tap it later. So, but the thing is, we couldn't get above 59.02, if you notice, right? We kind of closed, well, right under.
Snug under it. Yep.
Mhm. So for the short term, for the 30-minute, for next week, Sunday, Monday, we have a couple of numbers to watch. We definitely want to watch this 59, 58.69 to see, if we tap it and recover somehow. And then we definitely have to gain 59.02 in order to do any kind of a counter trend. So those are the two levels we're watching, and the price action around that to see how the counter trend mounts. And if we fail 59.02 for some reason, Sunday we start gapping, and we get below 58.69, then I think we have quite a bit more to go. At least 58.14 down here, 5800 this area before we stall out again. Yeah, there's some support at 58.58, but if we're going to stop here, this is really the number to stop. Let's call
Hmm.
it 58.70 just to round it off.
Hmm.
Okay. That's kind of my thinking so far. So if we're going to 59, if we get above 59.02, great. I think the counter trend is in the works. If we take out 58.69, I think then there's a little bit more work to do before we do counter trend anything on a higher time frame, not the 30-minute. Obviously got some, get it one here and potentially set up for one here.
Hmm.
What do you think? Is that
Clear.
good
Very
enough?
clear. Yep.
Okay.
Know the levels.
All right. I think that's it for that. Let me see what else we have here.
There's your weekly.
Yeah, here's the weekly, and I think we talked about the weekly enough. Here, it's the same thing that we looked at on the other chart. We have 108 by 144. And this is the futures continuous futures contract. So
Mhm.
everything looks okay. Not much more to add to that. I don't want to overdo it on the indices, but that's pretty much what's happened. And I know you're going to cover the NASDAQ because a lot happened there.
Bitcoin, yep.
And there's some good connections with the NASDAQ and what's happening in the S&P and so forth and so on. So we'll talk about
Sure.
all of that when we switch over to you. All right, let's move on to the other stuff. It wasn't all about the S&P this week.
Bonds is
Bonds,
just hanging on by its fingernails.
man, it's starting to slip, right? I mean, if the
Yeah,
45 was going to hold, it would have just held and left.
right.
So let's see what happens. We
You're
covered
about to get
bonds.
that square, right? That 45 by
Yeah, I
45.
mean, that would be the thing to do. I mean,
Hmm.
45, you can go 48 by
Hmm.
45, 45,
Hmm.
it's the square right there. So we're working that. But if we slip through, I think we have a lot more to go. Sure, it might be sloppy, but the pressure is definitely to the downside. And the pressure's been to the downside ever since we called out this high here. If you
Hmm.
guys remember the 180 and all of this other 315 over here. So not much to do. I mean, we were looking at the short side till it got to the 45. Now we're kind of waiting to see to which side it's going to settle. I mean, the problem here is after we had this big down bar, we can call it what outside bar on November 6th, all the price action's been inside of that. You see that, Ben? It's just
Hmm.
inside, squeezed inside of that. So really not much to do. We really want to wait to see how this is going to set up and move from here.
Hmm.
So that's it for bonds. I don't have a whole lot to add to that other than looking at the weekly chart. Now here we can add a whole lot
Hmm.
because what we have is an inside bar, and we know what happens when usually it's highly probable when the inside bar gets taken out in one direction, the market can usually get pushed into that direction. So it looks like we are sort of ready to do that. 114 is a support level, and I'm running the square 52 just because it's a weekly chart, 52 weeks, and we're three squares down, pretty much where the 114 comes in. So the thing here is, Ben, if we take this out by anything meaningful, let's say we take out the low here, we're probably going to go there anyway, just to probably do a false break, unless we're doing a very tight consolidation in this through this bottom half of the square, like we have been doing, like
Hmm.
since 2023. So the idea here is if we take out the square, the 156 here, and let's say 113 and a half, 114. If we take this out, take out this low, and we get stuck below this, I think we're going to go much lower. I think you mentioned par last week, right? Because that's the next
Hmm.
half square, and we'll take this out. And the other thing that happened last couple of weeks was we took out this trend line. If the bonds are really steady and stable, this trend line should have held it. And you can see on the way down, you know,
Hmm.
they were all taken out very nicely, and you can see the follow through we have once a line is taken out. So this line shouldn't be that much different. So bonds could have a lot going on if we get below this 13 and a half, 14. I think that's a big thing to remember.
Sure.
Anything you want to add to that, Ben?
Nope. Just that they do look weak, and there's definitely a battle going on there because
Yeah.
intraday today we were down big, then we went green on the 30 year, and then we ended up down half a point. So
Right. And
it's
I
it's
think taking out the high or low of this is going to be important, this big outside, because we've been inside of that all this time.
agreed.
Something to watch. All right, moving on to crude. What's happening is a big consolidation is what's happening. We had
Hmm.
some hope. We thought, this trend line was I mean, it's still kind of holding, but not really after today's price action. So we might have a shot at going back up into 53.50. But I would tell you this though, Ben, this is not the time to fall asleep on crude.
Mm-mm.
We're at a really good low. And I've been talking about a false break here. So we'll see if we get that. We did get one here, not much of a follow through after that, but I feel like, some kind of a down move, so I have a sort of a support zone drawn up here, the one we drew up for the last time we were rolling down.
I was going to ask you, man, it looks like a setup for a flush.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, how else could this, what are we going to rally from here directly? Right. So,
Right.
because we have everything, we have the lower, kind of like, what was it that we were just looking at? What happened in bonds, right?
Hmm.
And the S&P, where we started getting lower highs,
Lower highs.
and then and we sort of have a flat bottom, which is a 60-degree point, mark, and 64.75 is really that level. Yeah, we could do a false break before we go, but a good flush, maybe even go to 61 or even 60 might be the thing to
Mm-hmm.
do here to really get the weak hands out. And let's see if that happens. We're watching it up until then. Long as we're between above 64.75 and below 73.50, sort of in the middle of all of that, it's going to be a lot of middle of all that.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to either deal with 64.75 on the downside or deal with 73.50 until we get to one of those. It's just a lot more of this, which is not a lot of fun, but it shouldn't put you to sleep.
Mm-mm.
So here's another good example of it. We have the lower highs. I mean, classic, right? Look at this.
Yep.
And this is a weekly. And here's a low, that flat. So this hardly ever works where the next bar starts a big rally. I've never seen that.
Right.
So
Right.
there might be here and there exceptions, but it's rare. So I feel like some kind of a false break through here would be ideal, and that gets down to 61, like we said. See, and so we'll wait to see. Maybe not, but either way, not much to do here now because it's just consolidating. Let's move on to gold, and well, we paused the bullishness on gold as soon as the prices got here at 240. And when you see the weekly, you'll see how the weekly came right into that, and now a correction. And we talked about a correction to 180 would be ideal. And so here
Here
we
we
are.
are. And that's
That's
perfect structure too. If you look at
very,
the.
yeah, it's a very nice structure. And so we'll see what happens here. I mean, anytime prices get to one of these key levels,
Decision points. Yep.
decision points, right? So at 25.50 is really the level, and we want to see gold consolidate above this. We have structural support here,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean after that it gets a little murky as far as support levels go because we have a lot of it going on. So ideally, if it's all clean, it'd be nice and easy. We can hold above 180 and consolidate and see what we go from there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a deeper correction would be a negative thing, given what we had to deal with.
Right.
But for now, it's on support, so we're watching to see what what price is going to do at that level.
And it's basically a 50% retracement from that move from the 120, right? Because you went up two
Exactly.
squares and came back one.
Yeah, it's a perfect 50% retracement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the weekly, there's a weekly. Now the weekly, I mean, we did the 144, and it was very close to 144 by 108,
Yep.
so close enough. We had other squares coming, but anyway, I had this 27.97. Sure enough, we got there and reversed. So it's still going. We're only 2 bars down. And basis the weekly, 24.78 looks like a great spot to come up and rest. We have 5/8 right around 25.54. So that's another area to watch. Anyway, so gold is to the short side. We'll wait when we get the timing. We'll let you know. But for now, we're waiting to see how the daily does around the 180 that we pulled down into. All right, let's move on to copper. Kind of holding, but like you say, by the fingernails here. We're
Yeah.
at, we're at the square, 60 degrees up. And I remember this high coming in on a weekly basis. That was a big weekly high. And given that, we had a decent sort of a normal correction, ABCD correction, fine. Then we had an ABCD sort of a leg up, couldn't really maintain about the 50%, slipped off into the next quarter square, slipped through that, got back to the original 60. And now this is really key. I think if we get below this, if we somehow get stuck below 406, 405, I'm not sure what he's going to say for the markets, but I think copper getting stuck down here is probably not great. Right, Ben?
Not a great judgment on the economy, probably.
No, not for now. So we have to really watch this. We do have an ABCD that's building. I mean, obviously there's a big ABCD there, but if you just take this leg where
Yeah, if you go the October high,
Mhm.
November, then November high, you get a completed ABCD.
Yeah, this little one. Yeah.
Yeah, that little one. Yep.
So the thing there is, I'm thinking if the ABCD doesn't hold and we trade lower, I'm not sure what that actually is gonna mean, but it can't be positive.
No, not good for the economy, that's for sure. Not a good sign for the
Not a
economy.
good sign, right? So we
Right.
definitely have to watch that. So it's 405 is a level. Let's see what it does. If it just
Mhm.
sort of dips in here, does a false break and gets back up above the 405 level square, fine. We can just uh, not be too worried about it. But I think getting stuck here below that and slowly starting to sell off wouldn't probably be a good thing.
No.
Take a look at the weekly chart.
Talking about your weekly,
Mm-hmm.
man, that call for the square at the high was perfect.
This high up here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that 216 by 216.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That came in.
And if people don't believe me, because I know there's a lot of garbage out on X and social media, just go back and listen to the show when the week it came in. It was
Right.
called.
Yeah. And the week before he came in.
True. Right. Right.
Anyway, so we got a problem here now because we got through the 144 square,
Hmm.
and now we have an entire mess. So earlier, yeah, sure, we ramped up, came back, correction. Yeah, went a little below. That was sort of the first sign. Anyway, we were able to get up to 50% of the square, couldn't quite get above, second sign, right?
That was a sign for
Then
sure.
we thought, all right, fine, we can still get back to 144, hold that level, and we can, trade higher if you're bullish on copper. That would
Yep.
work out. But here we failed it this week. Last week
Yep.
we tapped it. This week we failed. So overall, in the big picture, this is not positive. Again, how it's gonna, sort of what is pointing towards the economy. I'm not sure exactly, but
I mean, it just looks like it's going right back into that mess that we were in for, a year and a half, 2 years.
yeah, yeah. And you know what happened during 22, 23, right? All this.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah, if we get trapped below this, which we're below it
Yeah,
now, then really the weekly, the big support area is back at the 365 level we were
yeah, that
calling
half
out,
square. Yep.
which is kind of where it all started out. If you look at this,
Hmm.
the couple of bars on February 10th this year, that's where we came back to test the break of the triangle.
Yep.
Remember that? And
Yep.
then we ran up to finish it off, and now we have a potential ABCD in the making. So anyway, that's copper. Let's move on. Got a lot of stuff to cover today.
Hmm.
The dollar, man. Here's the star of the week.
Yeah, but look where it
Yeah.
look where it stopped. Perfect, right?
Yep. Yep. Pretty good. This is where, no matter how short you're the euro, you got to think about covering some, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Because
Yes.
you're right there.
You're there.
And we pulled back. You can see how we tapped it yesterday, right?
And
Today,
pulled back today.
made a
Yep.
lower low. So
Yep.
and I was well, let's see how it all moves out. It seems like maybe we'll see it in the euro chart. But anyway, the euro also hit a point. So
Take
we,
note.
yeah, I was thinking we could get to 107 and a quarter, maybe finish the ABCD while doing a false break here. That would have been, that would be one, and that could still happen, obviously. And this is just one bar pull down, pull back, not a big deal, especially after this little triangle action here.
Hmm.
So we might still go up and do that, but we're watching it again. What are you going to do between these squares? Nothing. If you traded it, great. Now we have to pause and kind of wait to see how
The
it
next
makes it.
setup.
Yeah,
Yep.
how the next setup works out. The good news is, I mean, if you take the low that we spend a minute on the dollar, if you take the low here, we didn't quite get to 60, from the low.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's sort of midway, so there's a chance that we get there. So I'm keeping that door open. And if we get above, I mean, the key and the big play here is if we get above 107.25, that's when, Ben, you were telling me the other day, things are going to start getting wrecked.
Yeah, things are going to start breaking. Yeah.
If we can get about 107 and a quarter. So we might take a breather before, I mean, this is hot and heavy movement here. So we might take a breather before we get above again. Anyway, for now, that's what we're watching. So we can hope for a little bit more movement because there is a target. ABCD's there. We could go up and false break this, which currencies do all the time, like we did down here at the low. Otherwise, a little correction wouldn't be that bad, given the move that we had. I think it would all seem fairly normal. And here's the weekly dollar. Nothing normal about this one.
Oh boy, look at that.
Yeah, man, it's on fire. So this is what I mean. Even if we correct a little bit, so what? Look at this. Look at this weekly move. But then again, currencies, when they run, they normally run. There's no rest till normally.
The key is, can we, on the pullback, can we clear the the half square, right?
Yeah, that's 106.18 is the level. And if we hold above that, boy, it's super bullish. It's
super
very,
bullish.
very strong. And I don't know if you guys can see this, there's a structural line drawn up in here. It's a 105. So that's another level we can come back to. But before any of that, we have the trend line here. We could come back and tap the trend line before moving on. And that's a possible, anytime triangles, remember when we were calling this a false break? So
yeah.
And I'm guessing we can't have false breaks on both sides of a triangle. It's unusual. I guess we could. So I'm guessing if this is the break, which seems reasonable, that we go up a little, come back, recheck this trend line, and then move higher. But if we're really on fire, then 106.18 holding above that, even 106, anywhere in here, holding above that, this structural support is, well, it's all bullish. And for now, I think we can clearly say we left the triangle. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that part of the chapter, I think, is over. Although if you box it up, if you take this high and that low, we're still within that.
Yeah.
But we're just kind of getting started, right? I mean, you had to burn out some time, and we did all of this. So now and this could have been a false break, but it didn't. We went above that. So it's the next target. It's really up here, 107.34. We had 25 on the daily chart. So exciting time for currencies, I think. These are just getting started, as far as I can tell. Let's look at the euro. This is what I meant by euro also getting down into a target. There's that ABCD that we drew up.
Sure is.
And we tapped that. But if you notice, we couldn't, even the counter trend couldn't get above the 50% level. So the euro is just weak as it can get. And why do I say that? Well, it couldn't even hold above the 50% of the square. And like it did here. See, like when it did that, okay, we have some potential. And what it did was got us a higher low and moved higher. And here, after we tapped the 109, couldn't do it. It slipped through the 108, and that was it. So I think for next week, the level to watch is 105. Let's say 05897. You guys can write that down. 05897. That's 50% of the square. Long as we're below that, we're weak. If the ABCD holds and we get above the 50% level, well, then I think we could kind of expect some kind of a counter trend, at least to get up into 106. There's some structural resistance up here. Might even get up there. But if we fail it, then I think, I have to say the 72-degree line seems like the next spot. That's 102. That's 23.66. Quite a ways down. And if we're going to do that, dollar's not going to be sitting around below 107. So there's definitely things in play here. So yeah, that's what I have for that. Anything you want to add?
No, looks good.
Let's take a look at the weekly. And the weekly, well, here's the 50% we really want to watch for the long term. So that's 41.31. Let's say 41.88. I'm sorry, 41.88 on the weekly. That's 50% of the square. And we've been messing around in the upper part of the square since 23 and did the false break, came back, got through 108. So it just would make sense that we at least go up and test the 50% of the level. So that's the idea. Let's see how that works. So far, the weakness that we've been talking about is playing out. So that's that. I forgot to talk about this. I had this chart up here and I was going to talk about it right after, during the crude segment. I just wanted to say here, we're watching it, it's still on the bottom, sort of the cup, almost like cup part of the bowl part of the pattern. It hasn't gone parabolic, not even close. But this contact point here, we have a triangle working, and the idea was, if we get traction here and start climbing, which we clearly didn't because we're starting to break down
Out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to break down out of it. And so I'm thinking, and this gray line is 64.60, figure 64.50 right in there. And it would make sense. If we're going to go really down, this is the place to start. We take that out. And outside of a false break, we could definitely trade a little lower and I guess scare everybody.
Yeah.
And now, barring that, the other side is we go down, do a false break, and we could easily take out the upper trend line and actually break the triangle to the upside. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. A lot of
It's
support here.
definitely looking weak.
Yes. I mean, look at that. I mean, look at
Yeah.
the lower highs, right? Coming all the way from 22. That's a lot of
Mhm.
lower highs and a lot of steady holding around the 64 level.
Somebody's defending that level like a champ, but
And how?
when are they going to let go of the rope? That's the question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, you can see in 2019, those were the highs, right?
Hmm.
And 2015, we got up to as high as 63 something,
Yeah.
63. So that area is the one to watch. We'll see what happens. For now, we know what to do at least week to week basis. We have a
Right.
little bit of a plan.
Right.
All right, that's it. Well, you're going to cover
No, gas to me
gas?
is it's chopping again. It's like
Yeah.
I put a little ABCD down on that. That's kind of what I think it's doing from
Mhm.
that little spike high.
Yeah.
Until we get above your half square there, I think we're kind of trapped.
Yeah. So, but the thing to remember is how it's making higher lows,
Yes.
through this for months and months and months, and the bottoming process for almost a year. I mean, more than a year, a couple of years, right?
Couple years, yeah.
So that's a huge bottoming process. And if we get above this 298, let's say 3,
Yeah, three.
I think that's where we can start picking up some speed. Till then, yeah, it's a little bit like this. But you can see how that quarter square was that 3 is pretty solid line
Yeah.
this year, and we have higher lows pushing up against that. So something's got to give. Either it's gonna lower part's gonna have to give, or it's gonna pop to the upper side, right? On
It
top.
may just triangulate for a little more and then give us the
Yeah.
break. So we'll watch it.
And here's the Hang Seng. Last week we talked about this 2380, saying, look, if we really can't hold above that, we're going to go visit 19450 or
And
even the
there you are.
72. And here
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
Too bad we can't trade this, but what to do? It's just good to watch, the way the economy is over there.
Sure.
So
Sure.
anyway, so now we're setting up the potential ABCD to the downside, and
Mhm.
we'll see how all that settles. So this is the early warning, right? We really couldn't do it. We talked about the false break, all this stuff last Wednesday.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to know what the 72-degree level is, it's 19,214, 19,214. So you want to watch that, because this level goes, then China's also in a little bit of deep trouble.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
long as we're above this 19,450 or so, it's okay. It's tolerable, right?
I
Something to
mean,
work
look how
on.
false breaky that thing is. You had a false break at the high.
Here, yeah.
Yeah. You had a false break out of that triangle.
Mm-hmm,
That
mm-hmm.
thing likes to misdirect, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, a lot of the markets, I mean, if you look at the big low here, big false break,
False break. Yep.
low came down here. A lot of these things that happened. I mean, this was a false break, low,
Yes, it was.
came down, recovered right away. Anyway, I think that's all I have. Let me put it back to you, and
Excellent.
we'll cover the NASDAQ and all the other good stuff. A lot of commodities. It's the time to pay attention to commodities. We haven't covered everything in a while. So,
Yeah. No question.
yeah, let's get going. Well, it just seems like a couple of days ago we looked at this chart.
And we had the sneaking suspicion. You and I were talking both on the show and offline about, this thing has been lagging for so long. The rest of the markets were all making higher highs than the July high, and this one couldn't. And remember, it led the way up. Like, this is
Yeah.
a steep ascent.
Mm-hmm.
And on all of a sudden after the election, it pushes up, and we were like, oh man, that just it smells like it's going to be a false break. And now there's your structure, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this unless this we can get back above this 20,838, this looks like a bunch of distribution.
Well, this is going to be a bit of work to get above that now with that kind of an angle,
Absolutely.
given the environment, right?
Yeah. So the key here is, 20,838, any kind of, I mean, look at that big bar. So we're probably going to get inside bars or something like that if we bounce. If you do, and then you reverse again, man, that's a great sell.
Mm-hmm. Well, stalling at 838, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like textbook.
It would be fantastic.
And the O2 level would be good support. I mean, coming in there and holding that is your next big support level.
Huge support there. And if we give way there, we also lose the 1 by 1 from the low.
Mm,
So I mean that's a big spot.
right.
If we lose that, then you're in a full blown meltdown. But this is what we were concerned about, and it did come to pass with the break today.
Mm-hmm.
So we watch Sunday night, we watch Monday, see what kind of bounce we get, what kind of price action, and watching that key 20,838.
Yep.
Let's take a look at the weekly. Weekly shows a similar story, right?
Didn't like that 2182.
No, poked above, couldn't make it. So now we're looking here for a weekly reversal, right? So take out Friday's low, today's low, that's going to be, there's your reversal.
Hmm.
And again, it's looking like this is a false break. And we had timing here. Remember, we had the timing and a nice square.
Yeah. Great timing. I mean,
Came
you
out
had
of the
that 90 high
circle.
to high. That was like the kicker.
Yeah. So it's very suspect, but we'll watch price and see. But when we said the verdict's in, or we have evidence, this is the kind of evidence you want to see. You want to see, is the breakout real? Can you hold above levels? And the answers we're getting in NQs as well as ES is no. Let's look at the monthly. Similar picture and similar number. You know,
Mm-hmm.
on a monthly basis, if we close below that, this all looks like somebody was exit liquidity up there, chasing. So we'll watch it. There's another one I wanted to show you, which was the calendar day. Here, the half square is this red line, and today
Right.
we
Yeah, below that.
punched through it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a bunch of different numbers, and you can see the different time counts that came in. These are calendar days. Um, we got a bunch of numbers in the like 20,600 to 21,000. That's all going to be resistance now. So any counter trends that get stuck below that, that will be setting up for a potential fat pitch in the NQs. Anything you want to add here on NQs?
No, I think you covered everything we have to know.
All right, let's go to the
Because
star
there
event.
isn't a whole, I mean, the only time we have to talk a lot about things is when things look unclear. I mean, now it's fairly clear. So,
Well, what's clear is, and I hope people get this, is we know the levels where the probability of something happening changes, right? As long as we're below this level, this is more likely to happen. If we're above a certain level in a market, this is likely to more likely to happen. And now we have that clarity, based upon
the pattern too.
the pattern and the price action we saw this week. So let's jump over to Bitcoin. It was definitely a great week for Bitcoin. You can see the levels that this was the structure. I don't have to go over that. I've been talking about that all week, that it was a bullish consolidation, even though it was frustrating. And we've just been straight out. The thing that it's interesting to me now is look at the high and lows in these bars are getting, it's getting like fourth wave-ish,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pushing up, coming down, pushing up, coming down. So, and I'll show you on the monthly why I think we made a high here, not the high, but we did make a high. And maybe that's what we're going into this sort of triangle or, consolidation or chop for a little while. And you'll see that on the monthly. Obviously above 91,000 here, we're bullish, and then we're, the target is 96.6. Below 91,000, then 85 280 comes into play.
And a proper check back for the breakout would be that 73,666 level.
Yep, right down here.
And
That
that's
would
a lot
be
of drawdown, boy.
That's a lot of drawdown, and it would still be very bullish,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because all we would be doing is checking these old highs.
Hmm.
Now let's look at the monthly, why I think we may have made a high. So
Yep.
I was messing around with this circle. We got a nice touch here, a touch there, a touch here. Little missed it there, but and then we made the high into the half square, 93,063. So what's possible here? Over the next few months, we just, bang up against this circle and slide down, making lower highs, doing something like this, correcting again after this big move,
Hmm.
or we break out of the circle and rally. We just bust right through and move on up and out and go to the higher highs. But we know the level it has to exceed to do that, right? It's got to get above this, clear this square, sit on top of it, and then we go up to the full square up top. If we get trapped here, that 74,000 area, which is where you were talking about, right? Like coming back and checking that area
Yeah.
will be
Yeah.
the destination.
Mhm.
So maybe we peel down like this into here and find support there. Not bearish on Bitcoin, just it looks like a high was made here. And until we clear this, that could be the working theory. Anything you want to add on the weekly?
No, we're good.
Okay.
So, I mean, what more to add? We hit that 93,000. Can you believe it?
I know, tacked it nicely.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover today on the commodities. A couple of the softs I want to show, a couple of the grains, and then let's start off with you covered gold well, but I just want to give everybody an update on the gold circle chart that we had.
Yeah. Let's take a look at that.
Hold on. Take a look at that one, Barry.
On time.
So this is a monthly, right?
Hmm.
Had a nice circle here on this move up. Then we picked up the correction, and then we rocketed up into the highs. And look at the last two bars.
Hmm.
And this is what a circle can do. It can sort of, when you have the curve going down, it can trap price.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's collapsing, but it traps it. And we may, until gold can burn off a little time, it may struggle in this area, in this 2600, 2500 area, as it tries to burn off this big move.
Right.
Just like here, you see when it traps it in a positive way and
Hmm.
launches it on the top, it can trap it and sort of roll it over. And I thought this was interesting to see because we did have the timing there. We had the price, and now we're last two highs have not been able to hold up and outside of that. So if that was an interesting chart to me, and I had shown it before, so I wanted to update it. All right, let's look at corn. What's corn doing in all this mess? It's going sideways, but look at what it's doing.
Riding
Making
that trend
these,
line.
yeah, right, making the higher lows and riding this trend line. And the reason I wanted to talk about corn and soybeans is I was looking at them during the week and they were kind of struggling and there was selling going on. And then today I looked at them again in the morning and they were all down. And then I come back at right near the close and looking at the grains, all of them ended up. So it must have been a decent crop report or somebody wanted to buy these things because they all ended on their highs. We didn't quite get the daily reversal, but if we get a daily reversal in corn on Monday, again, this thing could move, right? Because here's your first leg, here's your first pullback, and here's what we're working on now.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's going to happen. We could still be trapped in this mess, but you got to be aware of it because when it goes, it'll go. If it's a third leg, it'll be a big move. So the key number here for me is closing above this 447 and a quarter.
Hmm.
We get above that, then we're opening up 500. And then, then I think we're off to the races. Let's take a look at the weekly.
There we
Weekly
go.
shows a very nice picture, right?
Yeah.
Push up, pull back, and now we're pushing.
Took out the trend line.
Yeah. And this is a one by one that it's hanging on.
Hmm.
So this thing could move, right? And you can see now that we've cleared, we on a weekly basis, last 2 weeks, we've been above this 412, 517's in play. So weekly basis, this looks good.
Yep.
Let's check monthly. Monthly has a little more work to do,
Mhm.
but we've gotten basically three straight up bars. Consider assuming that November gives us another up bar, we have a higher high already. So um, it's possible that this was the low, right?
Mhm.
We made the low, closed on the month the high, 28 high to low, 28 high to low here. The 36 is what, after this first swing up and we pulled back, we did 36 months from that pullback low after the initial high into the high, and that would
Right.
take us into 2027. If we do 90 low to high like we did in this whole move back in the early 2000s,
Mhm.
you're looking at into 2028 for the hot bull market high there. So one thing at a time. Got to
Yep.
get above 462 first. We capture that, then we're on top of this whole structure. And that'll be, monthly basis saying, okay, time to light the fire. Anything to add here on corn?
No, we're good. I think it's good to track these things from the lows, which you've been doing, and yeah, and that's what we're doing. Let's see. We have to go a little bit higher, a little bit more confirmation, and then we should be good.
Yeah. Let's go check one of the other grains, which is beans. Beans is a little behind corn, but it's still giving us on a daily basis this higher low structure.
Yeah, same pattern, right?
Pretty similar pattern, just a little behind, right? Because it hasn't made that higher high above that first swing. So that would be next. If you can see, we're doing a little triangle in here. So
Mhm.
if this is the first leg, this triangle would be the second leg, and we break out of this triangle, we could catch the third here as well. Key number, want to close and clear this 135.50, which is the full square here. We can get above that. We break the downtrend line from the Russian invasion many moons ago.
Mhm.
And that would be a very, very strong sign that this thing is ready to really get some legs. Let's go to the weekly. Here's your weekly. You can see how compared to corn, right? It's still got to take out that high. So call it 1060. We take out 1060 weekly basis. This thing then has a low, a high, a higher low, and a higher high weekly basis.
Yep.
So it's not quite there, but it could be next week, could be the following week, could be in a month. You just got to keep your eyes on it because, once we do that weekly basis, the daily will have ripped and this thing will really start going. Let's go look at the monthly. The interesting thing about the monthly, Barry, is look at how many times they've tried this 983 area. They tried it here, pushed down, closed the month above it, tried it here, and trying here. So
Yeah.
somebody's defending this full square area,
Mhm.
and that's usually accumulation, right? Because it's sitting on top of this stuff.
Yeah.
So the monthly here is not. If we get a higher high on the monthly, this is the thing where we could
And we're
have the.
down square and a half from the high, so
Yep.
that's
It's like I said, it's a little behind corn, but it's the same setup. Same setup and ready to go. Wheat, on the other hand, is not ready yet. So we won't talk about wheat. Anything else you want to add here on beans?
no, we're good. We're on time, a little bit ahead of time. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a heads up because it looks like it's ready, building. Let's go to sugar. Haven't talked about sugar in a while, not since we made this nice move.
right.
So this has been a pullback. It's been really choppy, as you can see, but ultimately it was just doing an ABCD.
Yeah.
And what I've been noticing is we're holding this 21-26 area. We've got a daily reversal now, and if this thing's ready to go, next week we should see it push higher. Not come back and visit these lows, but start taking out these highs and start moving towards this 23. Clearing 23.14 is the sign that okay, the next leg up is starting, right? Because we did the first push. Here's the first pullback. There's that nice third move. This is the sort of sloppy, you had a clean, but down here, and you had this sort of sloppy move down. So the next could be one more push higher. Let's look at the weekly. 2215 is the number, weekly basis.
Yeah.
We got to close above that. And if we do, then the weekly kicks into the next leg.
I mean, even above 1990, we're okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Lows in
I mean, and look at that structure. How about that?
pretty good. Very clean.
Yeah, pulled right back to that high. So the weekly looks good. We just got to let's get above and clear this 2215. Then you'll have momentum start kicking in. Monthly, the number's 2240. But again, a similar thing, right? We pulled back right on top of that high that was in here as we were making the low.
Yeah.
We've had a couple highs, and now these two bars have been inside. These are two inside bars because this is a big bar. So let's see if we can get above that 2240. Time counts look good. I mean, high to low was 45, low to high here was 45. If we take this as a higher low, like from here, a higher low into the ultimate high, puts us into 2028 potentially for the bull market high. This thing likes 45s and 90s, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add on sugar?
No, we're good.
All right.
Very clean.
Cotton continues sideways, so we're not going to talk about cotton, but let's talk about coffee. Look what coffee did this week. Now I'm going to show this not because I say, oh, you got to buy coffee here, but
well, the setup, right? I mean, held above the 245, got on top of the 259.
Yep. So the key thing here is we've been in this channel since July. So and today we pushed up to the top of it. Do we fail here and come back down to go to the bottom of the channel? That's possible.
Mm-hmm.
But if we clear 282, next week, if we get a bar that stays above there, we're going to 305. So there could be a nice fast trade in here if we get this clearance because, we're at the top of this channel. But look at the move this week. Every day, 1, 2, 3, 4, straight up. So something's cooking there.
Well, that little triangle broke. If you notice, it all started with that inside bar getting taken out.
Right here. Yeah.
No, the three.
Oh, this one.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So nice. We got to watch and see. Do we clear this 282.54? Because then, the bull move is on. If we fall back in, there's nothing to do, right? Because then we're just still chopping in this zone. Let's take a look at the weekly, give you some perspective on the weekly. So here, next week, for a weekly basis, basically call it 272. Stay above that, right? Pull back, we'll be right on a previous high, and then we go again, 300 target. But look at this move, man. That's a steep trend line.
Very steep. And speaking of parabolic.
So you got to watch it, right? We know the number. If it gets back below 272, it might actually be a short setup. We'll see. But for now, we know the number to look at. Same area, right?
And this is why this monthly, higher time frame triangle breaks and all these patterns are so important. Look at that, what happened there. Yeah.
Yeah. When these triangles break, they're violent. You get really, really good moves. But we're here near the previous highs.
Mm-hmm.
So if we fail here, could have, it's back to 222 roughly. If we hold monthly basis, it's 350.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring your attention. It's not like we're down here, don't think we're down here and just willy-nilly, jump in. But there's a short-term potential trading opportunity with the structure on these because of it's pushing up to the top of where resistance is. And if it breaks out and can hold it, it'll have the momentum.
But, but we talked about, I remember you bringing up the triangle. That's why the lines are in there, I think. And how when it breaks, it's going to go. And
yeah. So that's coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add on coffee?
No, we're good.
That's it. So Barry, the topic today, I don't know how much time. I think, we only have a couple minutes left. So yeah. I don't think we have time for a topic.
What's the topic? Just curious now.
I wanted to talk about the psychology when you have these change change in trends, right? Major changes. Because what we're potentially seeing in the ES and the S&P and the NQs is as a potential major change. And
Right.
if you've been hammering the long side and making money, and things change, your mentality and the way you look at it has to start changing. So
Right. Well, maybe we can hit it on the Wednesday
yeah,
show.
yeah. Well, if we have enough, because that's a speed round too, but there's only a little bit time left. So rest up, everybody. I know I say that often, but rest up, because I don't think it's going to be boring next week. There's potential fat pitches, as we discussed, in markets. So you gotta pay attention, you gotta watch it, and you gotta know the levels. So great job on the show this week, Barry, and we'll talk to everybody midweek next week.
Thanks, Ben. Good job. And you guys, thanks for all the help and support. So if you guys can like, subscribe, and click the alerts and share the videos, it'll be great. We'll see you midweek.
Take care,
All
everybody.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.